to even discuss this matter tells me that we need additional information as to what was actually going on with the fiscal oversight, the management of the school, and making sure that moving forward, if we're talking about moving forward, that the same mistakes do not happen again, and we as authorizer execute our responsibility as authorizer. And understanding that the most important in terms of renewal is the academics. They have that.
Absolutely.
They
do.
have that. We're
They
not
always
going to
have.
discount that. But there are some other things that need to be worked on that we cannot ignore if we're doing the right thing by students and families and we're being responsible with the tax dollars.
Madam
So
Chair.
what I am saying is that allow the discussion to happen. You made your statement about what you believe should be the next steps.
Don't you believe in
And
due
I am
process?
saying, I
Come
am
on.
saying that Mr. Clark does not have the capacity to take
But
this
you don't
work
believe in due
on.
process. If it were not for due process, many of us would not be in this room right now. Dr. Allen, I can't believe it. Due process is at the fundamental heart of America, period. Without due process, not one person, you know this, due process. We argue this all the time. Due process. Was this person given the opportunity to be heard? Otherwise, we would hear from the parents only, of the school only. We listen to both.
So wait, okay, so
So he
we,
wasn't heard from.
clarification, we agendized this meeting, this item twice, correct?
Yes.
Could that person have come to this board meeting and given their position on this matter?
No, if they have a
No,
gag
no,
order,
no,
if they have a gag order,
My
there's a
question,
gag
no,
order.
my question is,
No.
this person, it was on, Mr. Clark, for clarification, it was in a press. We made a statement at a board meeting several months ago that you right, you brought this information to us and you told the board that you initiated an audit of the finances of Clayton Valley Charter High School. Is that correct?
That audit was conducted under the authority of the county superintendent to conduct audits when she feels that there's a merit or reason to do so.
And
Yes.
so that was made on public record. Is that correct?
He did tell you that
Yes.
an audit was going to occur.
So the public knew at that time that audit was happening. It was information disseminated to the entire board. The information was disseminated to the public that this was happening. So I don't understand what you mean by due
Due
process.
process.
We have not held a
Dr. Allen.
closed session meeting on this. Everything that was communicated to us has been presented to
Another
the
issue.
board.
Another
So now we have trustee Dean.
I do have a comment, because there are two different issues. One question before us is, what is Clayton Valley going to do going forward to ensure transparency? And we've heard many of their plans, and the rest are in writing, and we know that they are addressing them. The second issue is looking back and ascribing guilt. And there's an interesting part about this, because the public's perception is that there's a tremendous amount of guilt. But I am seeing that Mr. Lindsay feels very frequently that he maybe stretched the limit, but he was within the law. And so I hear Jeff this time, I do, and that is that before we can ascribe any guilt, we have to have Mr. Lindsay's rebuttal investigated a little bit. But we can ask Christy White to finish the investigation by addressing this.
Address it, Mr. Lindsay.
And
And I'll find out, I'll get his location.
I'm talking.
Do I need to do I need my gavel?
Oh, I'm sorry. But there are two separate things here. And I do feel that there's a possibility that within the law, Mr. Lindsay was not breaking the law. He was not doing what we want. He was not doing, using the methods that we think are appropriate for public funds. But if he was not breaking the law, he needs to not be found guilty before us. And I think our audit rather found him guilty, and the publications in the newspaper found him guilty. And what do you think, Mr. Clark? Could I ask you that?
Very good. Members of the board, I've tried to pay close attention to your comments. Here's what I have written as far as follow-up from the discussion. Board meetings possibly moved to a night other than Wednesdays. Staff access to board members, repair trust communication, board advocacy, resolve Prop 39 dispute, review Lindsay letter comments, petition to include annual evaluation of the executive director, extend credit card audit, complete internal audit by November 15th, conducted by Clayton Valley. My question is, will the findings be made public? And then changes to the board governance. These are the comments I have at this point. As far as the question of legality, our recommendation suggests that that's not something that we can really form an opinion on, and it's outside of our realm. What the findings suggest is that, the oversight guidance or requirements indicate that if there appears to be the misuse of funds for the benefit of any officer, that could trigger, may indicate that there's a problem in that area. But I believe that our recommendation is to take that to the district attorney or some other agency that could evaluate the legal implications of that. I don't believe there's any more investigation that needs to be done. We have his salary, we know the salary of the other members there, we know how those salaries bench against the current executive director's salary, and so those things are pretty well established, they're concrete. The question of legality is something that would be conducted by someone else other than the county office as far as addressing that particular point that's being raised now.
Could I ask, Katie, just to weigh in?
No,
Personnel matters.
Your personnel.
I agree with Mr. Clark.
Can y'all hit your mics, please?
I agree with Mr. Clark in that I don't see us or you as the appropriate body to determine whether or not something illegal happened. I think Mr. Clark said it well.
Thank you.
Could I offer just 2 points of clarification to the comments that were made?
I want to make one statement for the record first. First, I don't believe anyone in this room was pointing fingers at anybody. I didn't hear anybody blame Mr. Lindsay. I actually met Mr. Lindsay. I had no personal issues. He seems like a really great person. What the question on the table is about the oversight, the governance. It's not about pointing fingers. I cannot speak to the newspaper, but I have not, County Superintendent Sakata or I and her staff, to my knowledge, have not pointed fingers at Mr. Lindsay, and I want to make sure it's on the record that he committed any legal act, and we are not in a position to say so. So I want to make sure that people out there know that that is not coming from the board. So any opinions that people formulate based upon what they've received from us, that is their opinion. And so the concern about due process for Mr. Lindsay is not an issue for me, because it's not about whether he's guilty or not guilty for me. It's about what happened in terms of governance and oversight by the governing body of the board, which is a requirement under the charter approval process. That seems to be the question for me and for this board. So I just wanted to make it on the record, because the questions that what I heard tonight and the concerns conveyed by the public, some of them may have found Lindsay guilty, and I cannot tell people how to interpret information that they have. But this board, and I'm gonna say it for the final time, we have not taken the position that anybody was guilty of committing any legal act. That is not within our authority. What we're deciding tonight is if the scope of the work was to the board's satisfaction, if we want to expand the scope of the work, do we want to notify the district attorney about what happened? Do we want to do nothing? Right? That is at the discretion of this board and what we're talking about tonight.
Madam Chair.
Do you mind if I
Yes.
speak for just a second? In response to the legality issue with Mr. Lindsay and due process and some of the conversation that's going on here in regards to Mr. Lindsay, that lays on the back of the governing board of Clayton Valley Charter High School.
I understand.
I do want to remind all of you that the board took action on May 11th, and we put our executive director on paid administrative leave. It's a public record.
Right.
with 3 potential charges: potential conflict of interest, potential financial mismanagement, and hostile work environment. And we are currently in active investigation of those 3 charges that pending for the paid administrative leave. So the work of the legality and the due process
It's done by
is on our back. That is our responsibility as the governing board of Clayton Valley Charter High School. That's what we are doing right now.
Thank you. Trustee Chavez?
Oh, is it my turn?
Yes.
I thought this was a 3